I would suggest to a church leader to get in front of a congregation on 2 or 3 weeks before an invitational event, and we're going to ask God, as one big congregation, is there somebody God has nudged them to invite? And we're going to try and keep the silence as long as we possibly can. And then it's all men, and then we say, if God has called you to invite somebody, that's wonderful. If God hasn't called you to invite somebody, that's also wonderful. But would you look at the end of your row, you'll find there some post-it notes and pencils. Can you just pass them along? Now, if God has called you to invite somebody, would you just write the initials or the first name of the person God's called you to invite on the post-it note? If God hasn't called you to invite somebody, which is wonderful, no problem, just put a big question mark on the post-it note. It might be when you're shopping on Tuesday or at the school gate on Wednesday. All of a sudden, that question mark turns into, oh no, not that person, give me another. I'm trying to get out of the mind of the church the person that God has nudged them to invite and get it on a piece of paper. I normally suggest, would you turn to the person next to you and just talk to the other person about what just happened there. It is so important that we tell somebody else about what God has called us to do. Well, after 2 or 3 minutes of this, we then say, I bet you've been wondering what this cross is at the front of church. I call this the invitation cross. And what we do is we ask people to come from their seats, from their pews, from their rows, and to come and bring their post-it note with the initials or the first name of the person God's called them to invite, or the question mark, and come and place the post-it note on the cross as an act of worship. And then, once everybody's done that, we can see what God is doing in the mind of the church on that day. Well, we then say at the end of that process, with all of the post-it notes on the cross, next week is going to be Inviter Sunday. An Inviter Sunday is where we're looking for stories of invitation, looking for stories of people who invited somebody and maybe got a no. And we want to celebrate their faithfulness of invitation, or somebody who invited somebody and got a yes, and also celebrate the faithfulness of that as well. We've got to tell stories. We've got to report back on what actually happened for the inviter as well as the invited person. Well, the final piece in the interview with the inviter is to ask them, did you hear the call of God? Because if you did, that's fantastic. To ask them, did they feel the presence of God? Because if they did, that's also fantastic. And even if someone got a no, can they see what God might be doing in the midst of a no, and to celebrate with them throughout the whole of the process the presence of God, that God actually went with them